the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, March 28th. No Disc Golf Pro Tour event coming up this weekend. Everybody can just take a little breath and get ready for the sort of southeastern part of the swing, Music City Open in Nashville, coming up in a week and a half. This weekend, we had the Innova Open at Texas State. It was a silver event, and your winners, Calvin Heimburg takes it down in MPO, and Sai Ananda takes it down in FPO. An awesome win for a player who's popped up in the top 10 a few times over the last couple of years, but finally gets a big win against the likes of Kristen Tatar, Josh.
It was by no means a weak field. I mean, Kristen and Owen and Holland Hanley,
Missy
all
Gannon,
right there. Yeah, and that's just lead card, right? Exactly. Then you go Missy Gannon, Katrina Allen, Jessica Weiss, Kat Murch. I mean, good field. It's a good field to beat, and I know she's got to be thrilled about that, and did it in quite a pretty convincing fashion. I mean, it was a good final round from her. Came in the lead and just played really well. So definitely.
Did enough. Played through some nervy spots and a couple of bogeys in the middle of the round. Yeah. Got some really fortunate kicks, to be honest, in the back nine, but also hit some huge putts and just was able to keep pace. Even as, Kristen and Owen started to make some birdies of their own. We're going to talk to Sai Ananda a little bit later in the show, and really looking forward to talking with her about the win. Josh, why don't we talk a little MPO here first? Ultimately, it's a 6-stroke win for Calvin Heimburg, 33 down on the weekend, beats Joel Freeman and Anthony Barella, tied in second place at 27 down. And pretty much however you want to look at it, Calvin was the best this weekend. He either shot the hot round or was like a stroke off the hot round. His putting was incredible this weekend. He is at 38% Circle 2 putting this season, Josh. And, I know we said this like 2 weeks ago, but like Calvin Heimburg is the best player on tour right now. That's just a fact. Like through this part of the season, like I don't think there's a question. If you ended the season today, he would win Player of the Year.
And I think what's important about this, it's a silver event, right? This is not, in terms of relative importance, yes, it's not nearly on the level of an Elite Series. But there is still, when you have a player like Calvin, who is showing you, yep, I am the best player right now, coming to these kind of events where you don't have Paul, you don't have Ricky, you don't have Matty O, right? There long list of players who are not here. Winning this handedly is what you need to do in order. It's an important part of the resume building. And it's something that you can see other players struggle in sometimes, where they're playing super well and then they go to a silver event and they have to win in a playoff, or they lay an egg, right? And it shows kind of that vulnerability. But for someone who you want to kind of believe in, like Calvin, and believe that he has that Player of the Year resume in year started, then winning handedly at events that are missing the entirety of the field are exactly what he needs to do in order to continue that narrative.
I mean, just the stats this year are crazy. 51% Circle 1 in regulation. That's third on tour. He's first in Circle 2 in regulation at 77%. 77%. He leads the tour in birdie percentage. And even though he's 13th right now in Circle 2 putting, that is not a reflection of how good his Circle 2 putting has been. He is at 38%. If he was to shoot that for the whole season, he would probably finish easily top 3. That's an elite number. And it was Gannon Burr who was on last week who said Calvin is the best putter on the planet right now. Mm-hmm. And that is not something we've said about Calvin in the past. Right. That's been the weak spot. It's been like he's done everything except the putting. And that has really started to come around. Maybe still a little bit of opportunity to get better in C1X, but I mean, he was just on another level this weekend, and it just you knew he wasn't going to lose. I mean, it was just like clear after round 2 that he was going to win this tournament.
Yeah, and as you mentioned on the putting stats, and all stats, honestly, I mean, what's important about all of these stats? Calvin Heimburg has played every Disc Golf Pro Tour event thus far, every Elite Series, the Silver event, for this part of the season, not including the wraparound stuff. And that means that there are more opportunities for him to regress to the mean. But the people that are ahead of him in some of the stats, like you said, Circle 2 putting, like the only name that I'm really seeing who I think played every event is Corey Ellis. Yep. And then he's tied with Paul McBeth in Circle 2, right? But fairway hits, Calvin Heimberg is fourth with an 83%, and the other three guys don't play every event. And so just whatever stats you want to look at, it's just so impressive. And perhaps maybe the most impressive stat of all of them, Calvin Heimberg has a 56% birdie average through the 4 events now.
Yeah, that's
more
crazy.
than half the holes on tour thus far he has played, he has gotten a birdie or better. And that's an impressive stat, and one that, like you said, there's no flaw in his game right now that says this is going to be the undoing of Calvin.
No.
As long as he's playing like he is now, there's no reason why he doesn't win a handful more, including his first major.
Yeah, I mean, and that's going to be the big question, right? Is can he get the major? In the same way that's in some ways dogged Ricky Wysocki a little bit of late. Obviously, Ricky's won majors, but hasn't had one lately. Calvin hasn't had one at all. And so that is going to be a major test for him, because if you can't win a major and, a Paul type, or, you can pick on any number of players that if they win 1 or 2 majors and maybe an elite series, they're probably going to take player of the year away from you. And so you got to be able to show up for the biggest events. Certainly, you got to feel good about what he did this weekend. Led the tournament in strokes gained putting, 93.57 on the putting green. That's crazy. He was second in strokes gained tee to green behind James Proctor. But James Proctor went out of bounds 8 times. Calvin only went out of bounds 3 times.
And that's not reflected in that stat.
Right. And so, I just, it doesn't matter how you want to draw it up. He was very impressive this weekend. Still, good result here for Anthony Barela. Also, Joel Freeman, Josh, your pick to win this tournament.
Yeah.
It was a good pick, but it wasn't a Calvin Heimberg pick. So I'm sorry for you, but I'm not very sorry at all, to be honest.
You take the lead. We have finally separated by the how many points do we do for this? Is it still the 3?
You get the 3.
Okay, so there you go, Charlie. You were able to finally cradle separation.
I don't know that we've established this in the past, but I would like to establish it now. You should get a point because your pick finished on the podium.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, yeah.
I think
we only do 1 pick, but you still get a point for podium.
Yeah, 3 for the 3 for the dub. So and Anthony Barela shot well. In another weekend, maybe wins this tournament. Barela's kind of still showing you that he's got the opportunity. I mean, he shot a 13 right alongside Calvin in round 2. Mm-hmm. He's got the tools, but you want to see it at the big tournament in the big spot.
Yeah, the 5 under in round 1 just
kind of torpedoed.
He had 5 bogeys,
yep.
Already on a course where you're scoring double. The winner's scoring 3 double-digit rounds. It's just you're too far out.
But I just want to point out another strong finish for James Proctor.
Yeah.
Who's kind of hanging around there up at the top week in and week out. Where's he in the standings right now? After this weekend, he is in 5th. He's ahead of Kevin Jones. It's pretty impressive.
It's really, really impressive.
3 straight top 10s on tour.
Yeah. I want to flag and highlight Brody Smith takes 10th place.
Yep, top 10.
And
nice.
Yep, a nice finish there. And did it behind a really nice Circle 2 performance, putting 65% from Circle 2.
Wow.
And 86% from Circle 1X. His standings, I remember I saw this I think it was on Twitter. He's been playing, his putting has been really, really strong, and I think is a good indicator. Yeah, I mean, he's 83 and 33% respectively, C1 and Circle 2. Great numbers for Brody coming out this year. And I'm glad to see the putting green is working well for him. So nice 10th place finish.
Very nice. I mean, lots of players who I'm kind of curious to see if they can pick it up. Alden Harris has a nice 5th place finish this weekend. Ezra Aderhold in the top 10, Aaron Gossage in the top 10, Nicholas Antela tied for 6th, Kyle Klein again inside the top 10. Some folks who've been playing well this year, some folks who played well last year, and we're on that march towards Champions Cup. So I think this is a nice bellwether tournament for how people might play on the kinds of courses that have a lot of open putting, right? I think part of the reason you're seeing such high C2 numbers, not a lot of danger, pretty flat,
pretty safe,
pretty like open greens, run it. And as a result, you're seeing some really good numbers, right? It's not like if you miss, you're going to go into the drink all that often. So,
as a transition point before we move to FPO, what did you think of these courses as a I guess, they really are two kind of separate courses as a whole.
I like them fine. I think, not a ton of like sort of interesting terrain. But I think like very clearly disc golf courses that had clear sight lines and in a lot of ways felt more visually clear to me than what we saw in Austin.
That's exactly what that's exactly my takeaway, is that it solved the issue that we had with Austin.
Yeah. And I think Austin's course was much more challenging. In a lot of ways had more interesting shots, but it goes to show you how important it is to have it sort of just look nice and like be like, oh, okay, I see what the line is here. I also think the FPO course was outstanding.
Yes. 20 players, even or better, which is the most of any event thus far, and it was at a silver event with a weaker field.
There you go. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all to see those numbers, given the way that the course looked and the whole lengths and all that. So
and there were some hard holes. There were some perhaps a touch too hard, but there were some holes that rewarded the distance throwers and gave advantage to them because of just how far they were. Hole 1 being an example of that, but then also hole 16, 17, 18, everyone could reach those holes, and it meant that it was still interesting down the stretch, even though Sai had kind of a large lead, and so and had a couple strokes on the field because we knew that birdies were coming and were very gettable for those behind her.
So Sai Ananda, we're going to save most of our conversation about her performance for the interview in just a moment, but gets ultimately a 3-stroke win. Buries a birdie putt on 18 that she absolutely did not need and probably should have just laid up. Definitely should have just laid up. We'll ask her about that. And I want to talk about Kristen Tatar, Josh. She finishes in second, solo second, and, was pretty good tee to green, but just something's a little off right now.
Yeah.
The putter has not been great so far this year. And I'm just, do you feel like you're noticing a particular issue in her game? Is this just a little hiccup on the way? We just got so accustomed to her looking dominant last year. And this is the kind of event that last year she would have won without question, like easily. And it doesn't happen this weekend. So what's going on with Kristen?
Man, I wish I had an answer for that question, but it just, and you're right. The putting is a little bit lacking, but the putting looks more symptomatic rather than the cause. It's not right. Evelina, putting is the cause.
Sure.
That is why Evelina is not successful. That doesn't feel like the case to me with Kristen right now. It feels like it's symptomatic of a lack of just sharpness all around. Upshots, drives, putting, just the entirety of the round. Even when she's making good shots, you're seeing less great shots, and you're seeing more shots that should be routine become a little bit trickier, and things are slipping in and errors are arising. There is just truly a lack of like that sharp edge that we're just so used to seeing from Kristen, that even if she wasn't the best at any one category, right? Owen is a better putter than her, but she was still an amazing putter. Paige and Ella and Holland and Katrina all throw further than her, but she still goes far enough. And it was Kristen's all around completeness to her game that was always ironclad that made her so successful and the exciting player that she was last season. And I think that means that she also doesn't have something to lean on this season. So she is a little bit off on everything, and she can't just lean back on her putting that is just robotic to her. It's a complete game that all feels just a touch off right now.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately, I don't have any prescription of why that is. I don't have any prescription of what she should be changing or what she needs to do. It almost feels, though, as if going back to Europe for a couple of weeks and coming back maybe exactly what she needs.
Just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah.
Looking at the numbers, it's obviously hard to draw comparisons between 2022 and the entirety of a season and a few events here in 2023. But some notes. The backhand hasn't quite been right. Mm-hmm. And then, maybe even more importantly, last year her scramble percentage was 42%. So far this year, it's at 22%.
Yeah.
That's a big step back. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing, where it's like the upshot's not quite as sharp as it usually is. And the putting is also not quite as sharp as it usually is. And when you combine those two things, she's out of position. The upshot normally last year, perfect, tap in. Now it's a 25-footer, which she's missing a little bit more than usual. And that's really cratered that scramble percentage. And ultimately, that means you're bleeding strokes. And obviously, her talent level is so high that for her, like, poor performance is still like top 5. But there's clearly not quite the same Kristen that we saw from almost the entirety of last season. But I do not doubt that she's going to bring it back around.
It's going to be interesting to see as well with that scramble percentage then, as how this affects her on different courses.
And that's what I mean about it being a little tricky to make a comparison.
Right. Because, what happens when she gets to Champions Cup? Right now, 80% fairway hits, that's first overall. So she's doing really well off the tee, actually. If she's able to, like, at Champions Cup, does it matter more that she's not going to miss the fairway as much as her competitors? Or does it matter more that if she does get off the fairway, those are going to turn into bogeys instead of pars?
Yeah, I think it's there's just a lack of that automatic nature that we saw last year. But isn't that what we should have expected? I mean, like, the level that she was playing at last year doesn't feel sustainable at all times.
And that's true. The problem is we haven't seen that level yet, right?
Right. That's a good point.
I would expect it one tournament, right? Maybe she has it at Waco and doesn't have it at Open at Austin. That would be fine in my opinion. The problem is her win at Waco. If she hadn't won Waco, we would be panicking a lot more right now.
Well, and she didn't deserve to win Waco. I'm sorry. I mean, she just didn't.
But a win is still, I mean,
a win
still
is a win.
Assuages, right? It assuages some level of concern.
Of course.
And so it'll be interesting to see then how this continues to progress. What happens when she takes a little bit of a break home? What happens when she does have a tournament where she plays at an elite level? It's no question in my mind that she's going to have at least one this season. So let's say she does. Does that mean it just flips the switch and stays on? Or is it just going to be a flash of greatness and then back to what the rest of the season has been?
Sure.
Definitely something to watch.
Sure. Yeah. All right, well, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to talk with Sai Ananda about her very impressive victory and what it means for her career. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Joining us now on the Upshot is Sai Ananda, the former junior world champion, amateur world champion, and now the winner of a DGPT Silver event, the Innova Open at Texas State's. Sai, congratulations on the win and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, you guys. It's an honor to be here.
So take us through this weekend. You know, Kristen Tatar's in the field. You have all these top players. I mean, it looks a lot like a regular Elite Series event. And you get out to a lead, and then, you know, you've got Kristen Tatar and Owen Scoggins on your tail. What was that like?
I mean, it was definitely crazy. Going into the second round, that definitely was like always a goal. You know, you're like, oh, I definitely want a top 4 finish, or, you know, a top card finish and stuff like that. So to actually put myself in position after round 2 and shoot just like a bogey-free round is someone's dream. You know what I mean? So to be competing against such top-level players and then having like some of my personal best rounds, you know, like you just can't beat that timing. It's absolutely incredible. So then putting myself in position and putting myself in the lead after the second round was like wow. Like some of the first kind of like thoughts in my mind were like, all right, do you think you like have the stuff? You know what I mean? Like, do you think like, I mean, I obviously have I have more than like a 50% win rate in like all of my career events. Basically, out of the 100 events, I think there's more than 60 wins or something like that. So I'm not unfamiliar with being kind of in the winner's circle, but definitely not against competitors like Kristen Tatar, like Owen Scoggins, and like Holland Handley, people that like I've looked up to a certain degree as I've grown in disc golf and kind of grown with them. So like going into the third round, I just kind of told myself, no matter what happens, I am so happy with the round I've played. I am so happy to have at least made it on this card right here, right now, and to just have played some phenomenal golf and put myself in that position. So I really just tried not to put any pressure on myself. You know, like these are amazing golfers, and if somehow they take that margin of the lead that I did, which seems like a lot, but you know what I mean? Like Kristen Tatar is an absolute phenomenal player. So when you have this just couple of strokes there, I was definitely thinking like, just hold on to it, you know, like play a cool round, hold on to it. And if they shoot lights out and, you know, want it more than I do, like phenomenal, the utmost respect for those players. So I was just like partially surprised and kind of like, I don't know, I'd never been in that position, so I didn't know what to expect from myself, you know, from my performance. And I didn't know how I was going to react to the nerves and the camera and having that lead against those competitors for the first time. So it was so phenomenal. And I just tried to kind of put that aside and just focus on each shot that I kind of had to execute. So with that lead, you know, try not to lose strokes, let them gain strokes was a little bit of my philosophy, you know, just try and continue to play that clean, safe golf that I had played throughout the weekend.
You shoot a 993 event rating, which is the highest event rating you've had. It looks like the Treasure Valley Cup back in 2022, you shot a 988.
Yeah.
A tournament that I was also at, actually. I'm on the other side of Idaho of you, but I've seen a lot of tournaments that we play of the same. So
that's funny.
993. What lessons did you learn from this tournament that you think you can take into tournaments moving forward that hopefully can help you replicate some of the success?
I don't know. I guess the first thing that comes up is like, if you've been playing disc golf for a long time, right, and you've been competing in tournaments for a long time, and you've put in a lot of time and work and effort, for me, trust yourself. You know, like if you've put in the work and if you've put in the time and it comes down to it to like make a 30-foot putt or hit a really tight gap or something like that, like trust yourself to do it. Don't like question in your mind, don't question like your ability to do it. Just trust that you'll do it. And then if you miss the line or if you miss the putt, you're still kind of like pushing that kind of like confidence in yourself a little bit. So every time you kind of make a bet on yourself and you win or lose, you're still kind of shaping that side of your mentality, kind of, because I definitely think that it's confidence is something that can be learned and something that can be practiced. So to step up to a terrifying putt on, for par, with these players behind me, to step up to that putt and just kind of think, believe in yourself, stick to your routine, release it, with your hand towards the basket with every intention to make that shot or to make that putt, and just believe that you can do it. And if you don't, then you gave it your best. And then you just kind of, you try on the next throw, on the next shot, and just kind of like one shot at a time for me, and not really getting overwhelmed. I think even the commentary on my rounds was absolutely fantastic. Holland Hanley she has some phenomenal commentary, and Nate Perkins is obviously super insightful as well. But oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. Let's see. Oh, but they even mentioned that a lot of the times you'll see players have that hot round, right? And they'll get into the winner's circle. They'll be in that first place spot. And then they've never really been in that position before. So all of a sudden, the realization of what they're doing, like where they are and who they're with, like sinks in. And then all of a sudden that can kind of like distract you from the task at hand, kind of. Your a funny phrase is focused on focusing isn't really focused, so you're sitting there trying to like, I've got this big putt for like the big win. And it's, I don't know, it was an important lesson to learn, to try not to distract yourself from the task at hand, which is literally just, it's corny and it's funny, but it's literally just throwing the disc towards the basket or in the basket. So that was one lesson I think that I learned. And I think another lesson that I learned was that, like, I think it's really important to pay attention to your skill set and your strategy. It can be so hard playing with phenomenal players to see someone like Kat Murch take a high-speed driver and flex a beautiful, amazing distance shot and get an extra 50, feet of distance and absolutely pure that shot. And it's so hard not to think, oh, well, maybe I could do that with one of my discs, or maybe I could try and execute a shot that's like outside of what I think my consistent like skill set is. So playing shots that I know I can execute like 8 out of 10 times, rather than going for that extra 20 or 50 feet of, distance to see if you can make the hole a little bit easier. For me, I guess it's a lesson I learned consistently, to like break the shot down into a couple bites that you can manage a little bit. And I think in Vegas earlier on in the season, I took quite a lot of OB strokes. And I think it was because I just wasn't biting distance off where I should have. And even in the event after that at Waco, I still really struggled with some OBs. So to kind of like look at that and then be able to like make corrections on a ball golf course, and even at Austin, I feel like I kind of changed my approach a little bit when it came to, hole strategy and OBs and stuff like that. So I think that was, hole management was a lesson that I continue to learn, on the course every day.
It clearly must have paid off thinking about that, because you only had one OB this weekend. And, if you look at the stats from the tournament, you could argue that that's the reason that you won. I mean, I think Owen Scoggins had 4 OBs and was 3 shots back. So obviously nothing is so simple, but I also am curious about this. You have this final round, you get some early birdies, then you kind of hit a little rough patch in the middle of the round. You take a couple bogeys, which you'd had only one prior to the final round. But then you you get the birdies going again late in the round. And it felt like there was some times where a tree kick was really helpful. You just made a shot that just over the water, doesn't roll back down. Like, things seem to be breaking your way, along with the fact that obviously you had to play through the pressure of being a leader. Did it feel like it was meant to be this weekend?
It's corny to say so. You know what I mean? Like, but it kind of did. I think there are a lot of players out there that kind of have this mentality of like, if you just continue to play, smart, clean golf and put yourself in position, one day it's going to be your day. And if you play disc golf, you know exactly what I mean. You know that, like, even if you play courses like at local courses at home and you just kind of casually play after school, you know that some days you, for no particular reason, are just making exceptionally phenomenal shots. You are just making those long birdie putts that you don't always make, and you are getting those favorable tree kicks. And I don't know what the X factor in the equation is where someone can just have that lights out round. I mean, I think even like the reason Adam Hannes like kind of rose to stardom was he just had a few tournaments where he could not miss a putt if it was within 70 feet. You know what I mean? And so it's just so crazy how those factors, those variables are super impactful to like the outcome of a tournament or the outcome of someone's round. So I definitely felt like it kind of was my day, because in that middle of the round, that was kind of that. It's weird when you feel the nerves. Sometimes it's not always on hole one where you're like anticipating the round. It's weird, at least for me, when it can kind of like creep up that like thought of like, oh, what this tournament means or what could happen, or you're kind of like speculating in the future a little bit and thinking like about the final hole, or I don't know. So it's that moment in the middle of the round was definitely like a really big test, a really big test for me, just in my point in my career. I think kind of being in that position for one of the first times. I think I've had a couple of rounds where it's been really close with some excellent players, but that was definitely, with the cameras and with the crowd, that was the biggest. So that was a huge pivoting point where I could have taken that bogey and let some of the thought processes that I think are kind of natural just for someone, to have some anxious thoughts, after missing a putt like that. I think any human would be like, oh no, oh no, I don't need this. Like, and kind of, that can be a point where the thread gets pulled a little bit. And so that was such a key time. And it took me a couple of holes. There was a dry run, I think, of like some pars before that had happened. So that was a moment you can't predict. That was a moment where internally I'm like kind of asking myself, like, do you think you got this? You know what I mean? Like, do you think you've got the stuff to kind of overcome not only what this win would mean to me, the players I'm with, the fans at home, just like all of the connotations and associations with the event can just come flooding in. And kind of like I said earlier, you have to focus on executing that putt. You can't be thinking about what could be happening after the event or before the event, or, even after that hole. It's, executing that tee shot, executing that putt shot it's the strokes. It's the strokes that absolutely matter. And I am kind of surprised myself that I was able to overcome that and still keep the putter kind of hot. Because even after that bogey, I was able to sink a handful of really excellent putts, even, on 18 and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people and that insightful people mentioned that my approach shot on hole 17 was also a hugely pivotal moment because all of my competitors had gone out of bounds. And I mean, one thing to note is I think I absolutely respect that every one of those ladies ran that tee shot. I think that says so much about the caliber of disc golf and the level of competitiveness that is in the female division right now. It's absolutely crazy because if I came up, I hit early and hit a tree, and that was a pivotal moment where, you know, the gears in their head, they were thinking, this could be a 2-stroke swing right here, and 18 is a birdie hole. So in every one of their heads, you know, they're thinking like, this could be it. This could be the moment where and not to kind of talk negatively, but that could be the moment where the momentum slips. That could be a huge pivotal moment in the round where Kristen could have completely not only shifted the score, but shifted that kind of
we saw this happen earlier this season.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So with Kristen's history and with how strong of a player she is, that was an incredibly pivotal moment. And I think it's worth mentioning my finish, hole 18.
We were going to ask about it, so you go ahead.
So yeah, I ran that. And so
in retrospect, would you have run it?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably shouldn't have in all rational thinking. But after I threw my tee shot and everybody else threw their tee shot and we were walking to the basket, I decided that was the moment when I needed to check scores. Kristen, I think, was closer to me, or so I thought. You know, when I was looking off the tee, I thought she had scooched forward, and I thought I was definitely caught up on the front of that little hill. So I thought she was closer than me. So I checked scores, and I don't know what happened, whether it was like in my brain and I was looking at the wrong numbers, or if the scores hadn't updated quick enough. But for some reason, going into that putt, I thought I only had a 1-stroke lead on Kristen. And so in my mind, you see where this is going. I thought if I miss this putt, she could tie us right now. And I do not want to play off against literally world champion, best in the world, Kristen Tatar. I cannot allow this to happen. And so that was like do or die. That was like, you need to make this putt in order to cinch the win right now, or you're going to be in a playoff. And then of course, after I totaled scores at the end of the round, I was like, oh, that's 3. I didn't need to. What's wrong with you?
It's
wow.
I'll give you this. It's way cooler to cash a circle 2 putt for the win than it is to lay up for the win.
It was for the crowd, baby.
Looking over at your PDGA page, there's 2 parts, I guess, to this question. You had a by all means, I think, a really successful 2021 season. You finished in top 10 at U.S. Women's, at Worlds, and at the Portland Open. But the amount of tournaments you've been playing since COVID really has been pretty low. I would say, less than 10. 2020, 2021, 2022, all are less than 10 events. And I look at your PDGA page now, and you're registered for everything for the Pro Tour. What made the change for you to decide that you were going to start touring full time?
Well, in all honesty, in 2016 and 2016, when I won my amateur world title, and then the following year when I decided to go pro and pay that extra, little PDGA fee and decide that, I am a pro, that it's kind of been the goal since then. But when I won Am Worlds, basically the week after that, my life kind of, my personal life completely shifted and turned upside down. So all of a sudden I was dealing with a lot of personal and financial hardship. I was basically, my mom had lost her job, so my family lost their home. And so basically everybody kind of dispersed, and I was like at square one, you know, like I didn't have a job, I didn't have a place to stay, I didn't have a car, you know, like I was starting from scratch essentially. So at this,
how old were you at the time?
I want to say I was like 17 or 18. I could probably do the math in years really quick. But
I mean, you were still like living at home.
Like 19, 19, 20. Yeah. And I was really like, my parents were in full support of my disc golf career. So they were like my parents spent they scrapped together every penny for me to go to Am Worlds in 2016. And it took like everything that my family had to just get the rental car and enough, you know, hotel days and stuff like that. So it was like my parents were 110% supporting me still and trying to get me to play as much disc golf as possible instead of pushing me to get a part-time job or, you know, pushing me in, you know, kind of other directions. It was 100% disc golf. So I think I was like 19 or 20 or something like that. And so all of a sudden at the peak of kind of like, I guess you could call it my career, even though I was still an amateur at the time. In my mind, it was kind of like a stepping stone, kind of a stepping block. So at this peak of what my career was and kind of this huge momentum shift and this like pivot point, like I won Am Worlds and I had declined to cash one time. That way I could go to Am Worlds and like get that title and kind of like secure that. It's you know, for me kind of personally to kind of take that and have that as like a stepping stone for me to like branch off into FPO and playing professionally. So at the same time, this height of my career in my disc golf and this amazing moment to have an amateur world title is not something every person gets. My personal life just went whoosh. So I had these like two views in front of me of like this amazing aspiring career. And like, I have so much work I want to do. And I have so much that I want to do. And like so many places I want to go and compete. And just like looking down this tunnel of like a career as a professional female athlete. And then also looking down another tunnel of like, I have to work full time right now, like as much as I possibly can, not for my disc golf, but for myself as a human, you know, just kind of living in this world. I have to work incredibly hard just to get myself, you know, back on my feet, starting from square one where everybody wants to be: home, job, car, basic, you know, basic kind of level. So that was like super duper huge and a huge influence on what people saw from me, you know, tournament wise and play wise. So from like 2017 on was me like couch hopping and staying at people's places and working full time, and then just trying to keep myself out there, you know, trying to at least make a couple of events, make an appearance kind of and you know, do my thing, but all kind of out of my own pocket. And so I could only really afford to do just a handful of events. And so it just kind of was a slow gaining process from there of like working, playing a couple events, making a little money, getting some recognition, and then just kind of like toggling, working in the off season. And so when you're working that much, you aren't really able to practice as much consistently, and you don't, you know, time is, you know, time gets us all. We only have so many hours and seconds and minutes in a day. So that was a pretty major influence in why I wasn't able to play as many events as I wanted to, or as I should. So I kind of, during those years of like 17, 18, 19, and 20, it was that thing where it's like people want you, it was kind of paradoxical. People want you to go out there and prove yourself. That way you can get support to go out on tour. But I'm also working full time, so I can't afford to really like put the throttle down and like make that full commitment and switch, because I still have to eat and I still have to pay rent and I still have to save up money to buy a car. I didn't get a car until, what was it, 2022?
Wow.
So yeah, so even in 2020 and 2021, when I was making those appearances, was still a huge struggle for me just to even, get to those. And then I come home and I'm like, I get home and then I'm working the next day, like there's no recovery time. There's no recoup time. I am like immediately back on the clock, basically. So, I mean, it's interesting to share that now, kind of because you obviously, people in commentary will mention it like, oh, we only see Sai at a couple major events a year, but when we do see her, she's always doing fantastic stuff and things like that. So everybody's always really kind. So it's interesting for me to kind of, show the view from the other side of the curtain, show the reason why I was only playing that many events, is it was just, me trying to work to just prove myself to even get the support to be out here.
Yeah, chicken and egg a little bit, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it was just, I was just kind of stuck in this limbo spot. And, even now I'm still kind of just renting a room in someone's basement. So even now I'm still, trying to make disc golf a career for me, so I can like buy a normal car. I'm sure I could find a job somewhere else and put my hours, into whatever, being a real estate agent or, something else that's paying well really right now. But there's also that battle between like, I don't know, I want to do what I love. I want to do, I'll say it again, only so many seconds, minutes, and hours. I want to spend that valuable, precious time I have doing something fun and worthwhile. So disc golf is that avenue where I want to make a career. So even now I'm like traveling to Vegas and Waco and Austin and Texas. I am borrowing my brother's Prius at the moment. So I gave him my Prius and we swapped cars. And so I'm touring in, a borrowed vehicle from my brother, and still like this year is amazing. And I'm like so grateful for Westside support, but still in that like transitional period where like I'm working towards just being like a normal human with like a house and a car and a career, you know what I mean? So even now it's like, I want some property, that's kind of a van and some property are my dream goals at the moment, aside from like obviously reaching these amazing goals, in disc golf.
So Charlie, if I may real quick, that kind of goes on to the second part then that I had noticed. In 4 events, you have now earned more prize money this year than you have in any other season previous. I mean, how from I guess the question I was going to ask was, how significant is that to you and your ability to tour? But I think I could probably guess the answer.
Well, and I guess I could give you a couple answers to that question a little bit. I mean, it's obviously incredible to, I don't know, just to feel so much encouragement and support. Like, like I mentioned it, I think in one of my Facebook posts, the absolute onslaught of just positive comments and messages and just like joy and appreciation for seeing me kind of reach these goals. It's overwhelming. It's kind of insane. And I guess I'm finally getting a taste of what, some of the other top players in the world must be experiencing, because when you win a world championship, I can't even imagine just the overwhelming amount of positivity you can receive on every outlet you could possibly imagine. So that's incredible. And I guess another part of the answer would be like, so I've been working so hard from 2017 on, and believing in myself and practicing, and obviously I have a huge following at home of friends and stuff like that that believe in me and think I'm awesome and think I'm an incredible player and just like have the utmost, kind regards for me. So it's one thing to have your local area think you're awesome. It's one thing to believe in yourself and think that you have what it takes. But for me to get the support that I have been wanting and have been trying to kind of manifest in my life, to actually get that and then like make the accomplishments and like not just think it, but do the things. It's so huge, and it's like a pretty awesome personal accomplishment for me to not only like believe in myself, but then actually execute what I kind of have been believing in myself for. So that like a realization kind of like, wow, you thought you had the stuff, and it turns out you kind of do have the stuff. And so I'm like making these accomplishments, and it just feels so amazing, to in contrast, to maybe get the support that I wanted. And then all of a sudden I get overwhelmed and, can't really focus. And then all of a sudden I'm not having the finishes that I wanted. And then, self-doubt can creep in. And so there are so many different ways that it could have gone. And it's so incredible that I've had these successes and have had these amazing placings and I'm getting aces and, just like playing some of like, just to be honest, playing some of the cleanest golf of my life. Like really, like bogey free rounds it's not like I'm just doing that every day, at league at home. Not that it's, leagues above, what I could play, what I'm capable of, but it's just so amazing to be playing some of the best golf that I can play on the stage when it means the most.
Obviously this is could be a career stepping stone, and in the same way that winning juniors or AMs was, but you're not signed up for Champions Cup or the tour, going out east. Your next event on your PDGA page is out at Masters Cup. So have you given consideration or talked to perhaps West Side? Like, is it even possible that you could go play the major? And I guess what would it take for you to kind of like fully commit to the tour at this point? Is it, if somebody gave you a van, would you just simply need more money from your sponsor? It's obviously a hard jump to make when you haven't had the chance, but this, of course, the big win here is going to raise your profile.
Well, so the plan actually is for me to tour for the rest of the year. And kind of, I have the Northwest Swing, which is going to start in Santa Cruz, and then I think it's a handful of events. I may miss a couple, but I think it's like Beaver State, Santa Cruz, OTB, Beaver State. I'm going to pop over to Austin for a Cascade Challenge, then Portland Open, and then there's a couple that I'm forgetting, but it'll finish at DDO. And then I'll take a little bit of a break in July, and then it will start up again, I think, with Ledgestone, and then I think MVP in there. So I actually will be touring for the rest of the season. I just opted not to go to Championships Cup because it's so far away in Georgia. And so, I mean, I definitely am committing to a full tour, but I'm also trying to just kind of not bite off more than I can chew a little bit, just in terms of, driving. Like I said, I'm borrowing my brother's Prius, and I'm trying not to do any flying to keep it kind of cost effective. And so that one, I just decided, I'm going to Worlds. I've obviously made the qualifier for the throw pink at USDGC, which is super huge. And then obviously United States Women's Disc Golf Championships. So I'm making a pretty good handful of those major events. And that one just seemed like it would have kind of exhaust a lot of my funds. And this year's kind of like a go in place of events and then, at least for me, kind of assess, okay, how much did that cost? And kind of what do I think I will need, projected into the future to make it better? Where could I have done better? Where could I, use some improvements of like, oh, I camped here and it was awful. So I know that I'm not going to camp in that place ever again, and just kind of figure out how to optimize. And then I guess to kind of move towards the second part of your question with like the van and stuff like that, I'm hoping that next year can be that year. This is kind of like West Side. I don't want to say they like really took a chance on me because I've been playing for so long and haven't really been in the limelight, but I feel like I'm a fairly established,
Sure.
player in the disc golf world, even though I haven't really had as many big showings as possible. So they kind of took a chance on me, and I'm just really hoping that they obviously are, but I'm hoping that they're just really stoked about me and stoked about what I can do and stoked about how I represent Trilogy Discs. And I'm hoping that next year we can come together and try to optimize my tour. And if that's, a vehicle or, finding someone to tour with or, figure out how I can optimize it, because that's kind of been the goal, from, day one, 2016 is what can you do to get more support, get yourself on the road and be able to travel sustainably in a way that isn't just kind of draining my funds every year, because I do want to make it like a career, something where I can buy a house and have a home base to kind of touch on, even though I'm traveling throughout the year.
Well, I think it's very clear that you have the talent to be out there week in and week out. I know we've seen that over the last 3 years, basically. So, Sai, congratulations on the win here, and we certainly look forward to seeing you out there again soon.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Sai Ananda with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. Thanks again to Sai for stopping by. Wow, she's a very interesting character, and I really hope that we see what she's describing, which is that she gets the support necessary for her to really fully go on tour, because I think you're looking at a player who could be top 15 DGPT standings straight away. I mean, maybe we'll get there this year.
She already is.
I guess that's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, she's 14th right now. So,
Right.
so this, first season really playing this many events this early and kind of in a row, and the 9th place Open at Austin and a first place now at the Silver bumps her up into 14th place. So that's a good prediction, Charlie. That's I'm impressed. But Sai, I think what's impressive to me about Sai is she is another player who feels like she has a very well-rounded game. When you watch her play, there's, she has a lot of things that she does well. Nothing stood out to me per se as being like absolutely like just the most remarkable. But 71% Circle 1X, 25% in Circle 2, 56% Circle 2 in regulation, 30% in Circle 1 in regulation. None of those are the best in any category. In fact, she falls around the 25 mark, between the 20 and 25 mark in everything except Circle 2 putting. 25% is second place on tour right now. But she's really between 16 and 25 in every one of her stats. But the fact that her worst stat is 25th, which is Circle 1 in regulation, bodes really well in terms of the completeness of her game.
Well, and you brought this up in the interview. I mean, she shot over 990 this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That is a win a tournament level performance, regardless of the event that you're playing
Yes.
at.
Yep.
And she has improved her event rating at each tournament so far this season. And I think, she didn't specifically say that, but she was talking about how, I have to improve I got to go out of bounds less. I need to be a little smarter about my golf. And she's gone 26th at LVC, 25th at Waco, 9th at Open at Austin, and 1st at Texas State's. And I will say that Texas State's is basically a full field minus Paige Pierce. I mean, there were some other players who were not there, but it's not like it was a cheap win. This was not a silver win from, late in the season last year when, there was only one player rated above 950. Right. This was a legit win. And yes, it's a silver, but look, it's 3 rounds, just like all these other tournaments. To me, and the thing is, it's not like this is a flash in the pan. We had seen Sai Ananda have this level of performance, maybe not quite this good, but be a top 10 player at majors in the last 2 years. I think what's interesting to me is that she manages to do it without a forehand. You talk about well-rounded. I agree, except that she has a major weakness in not having a forehand. Although her turnover backhands were a real big part of her success, and she threw some beautiful shots this weekend.
Yeah. But here's the tournament I'm watching Sai at.
Okay.
Jonesboro. This course feels like the Jonesboro course. The long open fairways, some OB, but
I have
also
bad
some
news.
natural. What? Is it not played there?
She's not playing.
She's not playing Jonesboro. No, that was the event. Okay.
Sorry. She's not playing again until the West Coast swing. So.
I was watching this course and I'm like, man, this is like Jonesboro. And then you were talking about this like being the real win. I'm like, I was thinking Jonesboro was after Champions Cup.
To me, this is where I'm like, okay, what is the sponsor's responsibility in a situation like this? Maybe there's other reasons. She's like, I don't want to fly because it's too expensive. I'm like, West Side, let's give her a couple thousand extra bucks so she can fly to Champions Cup, even if she doesn't play the other tournaments. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to tell a company how to run their business or how to deal with their sponsorship situation. And West Side is obviously a smaller brand. And, now it's all one giant company. So
Sure.
I don't know how they're going to manage that. But to me, it's like a strike while the iron is hot kind of situation. It's a big bummer. We're going to be going into Champions Cup. And I'm actually commentating at Champions Cup on FPO. I would like to be able to talk about this Sai Ananda storyline, but now it's moot because she's not going to be there. Now, look, players skip tournaments all the time. That is what it is. She obviously has a very interesting backstory that I'm really glad we got to hear about. But I kind of would like to me, it's a small extra investment in a lot of cases for a sponsor to help out with the cost of travel to a big tournament like Champions Cup. I would think it would be smart for them to consider that.
Especially because Sai is, I think, in large part, the highest profile West Side player.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's a good sponsorship move. I'm sure she's going to make a little extra money from disc sales.
Sure.
Over this week.
Hope so.
All right.
We got Purse Watch next. Yeah.
Yes, we sure do. First silver event of the year and our first silver Purse Watch as a result. Here are your numbers. In MPO, 33,450. FPO got 13,110 for a total of 46,560. Of course, that's way down from last year's Texas State's when it was an Elite Series event, down about 35%. But, Josh, it is higher than almost all of the silver events from last year. I think the only one that it finished below was PCS Sula, which feels like a little bit of an exception because it was this already high-profile European tournament that's now moving to the Elite Series.
Yep. Yeah, great. I honestly, really, really respectable numbers all around for a silver event. I liked this event. I liked it in a lot of ways. I thought there were a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, it's time for our segment 30-second rule. You know the drill. We get 30 seconds. If we go over, there's no real consequences. Josh, take it away.
First up, Open at Tallahassee happened this weekend as well. The MPO side, Matteo was the highest rated player by a mile. Second highest rated was 1019, Matteo 1040. He wins it 24 under par. Second place gets 17 under, Silas Schultz. Matteo, and then Casey White, third place with a 16 under. Matteo, in his victory speech, thanked both his sponsor and Paul Macbeth for not coming to this event. And so kind of gave that to Matteo. And one of my favorite post-round interviews or speeches that I've heard. Over on the FPO side, Morgan Linz wins with a 9 under par. She's 927 rated, beating out her sister Jordan Linz, who had a 6 under. Ellen Woodboone finishes in third at 3 over par.
Morgan Linz has won 4 straight tournaments, and Jordan has finished in second place in all 4. So a little sibling rivalry down there in Florida. I feel like both of these players are ones to watch for potential future touring pros. Morgan Linz right now, I think, is rated in the 920s. And, you know, it's not like this was a strong field, really. But they beat out Ellen Woodboome, who's won an Elite Series. So keep an eye on those
higher rated
players.
than her.
That's true. Yeah,
So,
keep an eye on them.
Yeah. The next up on the 30-second rule, Paul Macbeth and Dylan Cease have purchased the property that is home to Throwdown the Mountain in Brooksville, Florida, and are planning on making this property one a permanent layout. So this course is normally, it's on private property that is typically only accessible for a very short period during the summer, hosts the tournament, and then that's about it. But Paul Macbeth and Dylan Cease have now purchased this property and are going to be making a more permanent destination, another destination course. This seems in addition to their Alabama property, Cactus Rock, that they are also in the works on together.
This is crazy. I mean, are we seeing like the birth of like an empire of courses run by 2 pro athletes in an emerging sport that seems like it's only going to continue to go up? I mean, the legacy Paul Macbeth is going to leave feels stunning. When we look back on this era, not only will we talk about Paul as the best competitor of all time, but we're also probably going to be talking about him as one of the most influential people on the sport externally of the competition. Like, think about how much they've already accomplished with the Paul Macbeth Foundation. I mean, I feel like he's done more than the PDGA to put new courses in the ground in key places, which, if you think about it, is crazy. And I just think that this is very interesting. That course, that we are on the path to that being the kickoff event of a year. You know, maybe not number the first event, but like a Florida start to the tour. That's coming. Yep. I don't know when, but I feel like this is the step for that because pros love that course. I think it's Macbeth's favorite like course, and he
always takes time out of the tour to go play this event.
Always.
What if? I mean, this could be a permanent home for Pro Tour Championship. This could be.
It's you can't rule that out.
Right? There are options, and it's such an exciting development. Love
and you're
this.
in business with, you know, professional baseball player who, like, if he continues to play like he is, could bring more eyes to disc golf
and money.
That's right.
Yeah. Next up, Monday qualifying is now a feature of Champions Cup as well. That's right. All those players who made the wait list are going to have an opportunity to get in. There's going to be a Monday qualifying event that the PDGA has recently announced.
8 spots for MPO, 4 spots for FPO. Is 8 MPO spots going to be enough? I don't know. I feel like we're going to have a couple good players get left out, but in theory, your star players like James Conrad and Kevin Jones should have no problem qualifying. Interesting that this is the route that was taken to try to solve the lots of people on the wait list issue. Currently 26 players on the MPO wait list.
If you get James Conrad, Kevin Jones, Garrett Gerthy, Andrew Marweed, Ezra Aderhold, Aaron Gossage, that's 6. And then you've got, still like Tim Barham, Evan Scott, Casey White, like some other names that are recognizable. But they're definitely, when you look at players who you're like, holy crap, they probably should be at a major and could possibly win this. I see 6 of them that I'm like, they need to be on that list.
Look, I feel like this is fair enough as a remedy.
Yeah.
And you didn't sign up on time. Okay. Well, go earn it. And if you don't earn it, I don't really think I'm going to feel all that bad.
Yeah.
But everything I said last week stands. There has to be a better way. And my understanding is that the Pro Tour is going to be taking over more of the registering for majors responsibilities, because there's no world in which tour card holders shouldn't have clear path to getting into the majors.
Well, don't worry though. Drew Gibson over on his Twitter account made sure to tag Ezra Aderhold for the world's registration this week. So
okay, Drew turning into like a Twitter troll is maybe one of the more interesting developments of the last year. He's not even playing right now. He's just at home on Twitter, trolling people.
What's funny is Nico was the villain last year, and now Nico's just kind of kept his head down and just done his thing. And Drew's the one who's like, nah, this is my spot, man. I want this role.
I just have one thing. Hey, Drew.
Get off the couch. Get some exercise. Get some fresh air and sunshine.
But Charlie, if Drew gets off the couch, who is going to be the new notifier of PDGA events?
Well, Andrew Fish. He's charged
that's right. It's
product.
His business. Yeah. Fish Industries gets you registered for tournaments. Final point, 30-second rule. Doug Bjerkes is leaving Dynamic Discs, and on April 1st will be getting a director level position with the PDGA. It has not been announced what that position will be yet. But I mean, Bjerkes has been a long-time face over at Dynamic Discs and will be moving into what it sounds like is going to be a pretty high-profile position over at the PDGA. I mean, are we with the transition and the merger with Latitude and the acquisition? It's not surprising to me that there are other opportunities for some of those higher-profile individuals and employees who maybe just want to move on to something a little bit different. And the timing makes a lot of sense to me.
Pretty interesting. I haven't had a chance to personally talk with Doug yet about this but I do think it's an interesting situation. Yes, mergers and acquisitions often come with shifting roles, but Doug was in this spot where he's basically the CEO. I mean, I think his title was president at DD. He's probably taking a pay cut to go to the PDGA. Yeah. My understanding is he's going to work in the competition department, and then he'll be at the top of the competition department, which makes sense. I mean, he has a ton of expertise in running very large, high-profile events of both majors and Elite Series, NTs, etc. Yeah. And I think he'll probably move to the East Coast and leave Emporia, where he no longer really has family. Right, Paige's gone, and I think there's a lot of reasons this makes sense. It's a time of transition anyway, and I think the PDGA is really lucky to get Doug Bjerkes.
Yes, yeah, especially if you're right that it is in the competition department.
And I wonder what this is going to mean for DD. I mean, you think about how much, to have Rusko basically stepping away and then have Bjerkes stepping away. They're going to have some things to figure out in terms of the leadership side of that.
That's for sure. Charlie, that's it for 30-second rule.
Okay, I think we went over 30 seconds on every single one, but it was a lot of fun. That is going to do it for today's show. Make sure to send us your thoughts, letters, ideas, complaints to upshot@ultiworld.com. And looking forward to a Thursday show with no tournament on the horizon. So we'll probably do something a little different on Thursday. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.